Hi everybody. So I'm going to show you how to do this video analysis thing. And I'm going to show it to you through the Sigmund version here. All right, let's get to it. So hopefully you filmed your video. I'm going to use an example video. So I'm going to click Choose File here first, and then I'm going to use Doom Buggy Video. Throw it up there. It's going to load up. Boom. There you go. Now, yours is probably going to go from left to right. I will also say, I made a whole deal about how, you should make sure that the car is somewhere away from the meter stick beforehand and all this other kind of stuff. This is not the best video, but there's going to be some differences in this video, and I think that's going to make it useful. So what's nice about the Sigmund version as opposed to the other version is that you just go down the line here of how you go to collect things. You start at the top and work your way down. So here we are. Here's the video. So I'm going to start with calibrate. And by calibrate, I'm telling the video how big a meter is. So I got a meter stick here, and it's in the same plane as the Doom Buggy. Wait, cancel. I got the Doom Buggy's in the way of the meter stick, so I'll forward the video until it's here. Now I know the meter stick stops here and starts here. So now I'll go to calibrate again, and I'm gonna use my crosshair. If you see my mouse turned into a crosshair, and I'll start here. That's the beginning of the meter stick, and then I'll click here. So I clicked at the left end, then I clicked at the right end, and for length, I'm gonna say it's 1. And the units are meters, so the symbol is just a lowercase m, and I click done. Next up, I'm going to say where time equals 0. So I want to put somewhere in the video where the Doom Buggy is. Let's say here. I could put it at the very end, honestly, but let's just say it's here. So I'll hit set that as time equals 0. So it's saying the current frame is now time equals 0. Great. Now I want to make my x equals 0 position. That's the vertical position on like an axis thing here. I tend to make it all the way to the left because that means then everything to the right is positive. So I'll put it all the way to the left and I'll click there. There you go. That's x equals 0 position. Now you want the y equals 0 position. You see it's a horizontal part of an axis. So I tend to put that on the bottom. That means everything above it is positive. I tend to like things to be positive, even though this car is going to go in the negative direction. Next up then, and you can see, right, my meter has already moved because the camera was kind of shaking here, which again is not the best camera work, but anyway. So, okay, and now I'm going to get data points. So I'm going to get data points, and how this works is I'm going to pick one part on the car, and I'm going to click on that part, and then the car advances. I tend to pick like the right, the kind of like maybe the left edge wheel of the car. So I'll click that, and you can see, the car advanced. But it advanced very slowly. I clicked again. I click again. I click again. I click again, I click again, and the car's advancing super slowly. I have too many frames happening here. So I'm going to try 4 frames so that it can advance maybe a little bit more during that time interval. So basically it's going to advance 4 frames now every time I click instead of just 1. So we'll try that and see what happens. So let's see, let's click here. Oh, there we go, that's a little better. It's a little better. And I just keep clicking and letting it advance. I might even go a little bit more, but I can keep, you know what? Yeah, let's let it go a little bit more. Let's be really crazy about it. So I'm gonna keep, there you go. Because it's moving so slowly. I'm gonna keep clicking that thing. And again, I'm not being very accurate. You are going to be more accurate in your clicking. But I'm just trying to give you a general sense. So yeah, you would keep going until you're happy with the amount of data points you have. I'm going to stop here. What do I got? 24? That's not great, but we can keep. Yeah. So now, right, the car isn't moving in the vertical direction. It's only moving in the horizontal direction. So all I care about is the X position, the horizontal position. That's the X, and the time, because that's what I'm going to graph. I'm going to graph a position versus time graph. It didn't really move in the vertical position. You can see it's not really, right, the vertical position doesn't change much. So I can click on certain columns that I want copied. So it says copy to the clipboard. I'm going to do X versus T. So it says X versus T copied. All right. And then I'm going to go to your Google Sheet. You got one on eCadence. And I'm going to paste that data. There we go. I pasted the data. Now on the left side, if you copied it correctly, it should start at 0. That's at time equals 0. So I'm going to say time, right? And the units we're using here are seconds. And then for the horizontal position, I'm going to say position. I'll just say position instead of horizontal position. We'll get to that later. And the units are meters for that. So you want to make sure you have it properly labeled. And now I'm going to make a graph. How do you make a graph? You can highlight the whole cell or something like that. But I tend to go from A to B, column A to column B. So I'm going to click on the left side and go to B like that. Yeah, time you want on the horizontal axis and position on the vertical axis. And the way Google Sheets works is whatever's on the left side goes on the horizontal axis, and on the right side goes on the right axis. Or as we tend to say, independent variable is time, dependent variable is position. So I've highlighted that, and now I'm going to graph it. So a couple ways you can do this. There's an icon over here that says Insert Chart, or I can click Insert, and then there's a chart option there as well. So I go to Insert Chart. There it is. So whichever you prefer, I don't care. So I'm going to highlight this again, and I'm going to go to Insert Chart. Come on. Hey, there we go. So it's made my graph. Your graph, if your car moved from left to right, was probably going to go up a little bit like this. But you can see I've got my data here, and you can see here how I skipped frames, how the data is more spread out over here than it is over here. But the rate at which it's moving is pretty constant. So it looks like a straight line. So I'm going to use, I'm going to make a trend line. I'm going to make a best fit line. So I'll go to Customize, and then I'll go to Series. Then I'm going to select Trend Line. That's going to make me, see, it made my best fit line right there. You can see it already. For label, I'm going to select Use Equation instead of None. So I'm going to select Use Equation. It gives me then an equation for that line in y equals mx plus b format. You see here, y equals mx plus b. Although be careful, because that x is time, because time is your independent variable. It's on the horizontal axis. And I'm also going to click on r squared. R squared value, yes, okay. So, and if you don't know what r squared is, we'll talk about it in class. Okay, and it should also say position on the horizontal axis in meters with the units, and time on the position on the vertical axis in meters with the units, and time on the horizontal axis with seconds as the units. You should have an equation with an r squared value, and then position versus time. I want to be specific, so I could say of a red dune buggy or something like that. So you want to be a little more specific with that. And yes, so the last thing you're going to do then is your T prime calculation. And so for this, so I'm going to say I'll make another column. So, or you know what, I'll just do it over here. So I'll make a T prime column. So I'll say T prime. And then the other thing you're going to do is a T prime calculation. Remember the T prime calculation, I'm looking over here at your thing right now. It's 1 divided by the original time and then square rooted. So you could say either the power of 0.5 or the square root. I'm going to show you both ways. So here's T prime. So I'm going to take the original time. The original time is over here on this column. And I'm going to invert it, and then also take the square root of it, right? And so, okay, to do that, it's going to be equals. You always do equals when you're doing a function. And then it's 1 divided by, so I'm going to put a forward slash. And then I always parenthesize everything like crazy, so I put it in a parentheses. Now, one of two things you can do. One is you can click on the cell that you want to perform the operation for. In this case, it's this one, which, by the way, it's going to give us an error, but don't worry about it. I could do that, or I could look and see it's column A, row 2. So I could just write A2, and it does the same thing. You can see it gets highlighted. And then a couple ways you could do the square root as well. You could do to the power of. So in Google Sheets, to the power of is this little caret symbol right here. In most keyboards, it's Shift 6. And so I'm going to do the power of 0.5 and close parentheses, and I click enter. Now it says divided by 0, right? Because I really just did 1 divided by the square root of 0. That's silly. But if I wanted to do it to every other time here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to if you can see my mouse is an arrow right now. Well, if I bring it, if I click on the cell and then bring it to the lower right corner, it turns into a plus sign. So it goes from an arrow, and I bring it to the lower right corner, it turns into a plus sign of the cell. And if I click that, hold and drag down, there you go. It did that calculation for every time there. So you can see up here, it tells me the function I just did. It's using A3 right now, where here it's using A4. Here it's using A5, A6, etc., etc. So instead of doing that calculation by hand over and over and over again, Google Sheets just did it for me after I did it once. Now, the other thing I'm going to show you is how you could do that, or you could use the square root function. So I'm going to delete all of this and try it again. So the square root function, that's equals 1 divided by, and again, open parentheses. I'm going to use the original time, which is over here. Oh, yeah, but I'm trying to use the square root function. So I'm going to close parentheses. I'm going to open parentheses again over here. And if you just use capital S, capital Q, capital R, capital T, that's the square root function. So I'm saying square root, and you have to put all of that in parentheses. And then I'll close parentheses, hit enter, and it should do it again. So I'll click, hold, drag all the way down, and boom, it just did that for every single one. So either the square root function or the other, it's the same thing, same operation. It's just different ways to do it. One I did to the power of 0.5. This time I used the square root function. Capital S, capital Q, capital R, capital T. So what I expect to see on the Google Sheet that you use is that you have time column, position column that's labeled. It's got data points. You should have this calculated column. I should be able to click on the calculated column and see the function that you use. It shouldn't just be a number. I want to see that you're using Google Sheets and not just calculating it by hand. Then the other thing is in the graph, I should see this one graph. I should see position versus time with the correct units. So labeled appropriately, position should be on the vertical axis. Time should be on the horizontal axis. The equation of the line should be written out, should be showing, as well as the R squared value should be showing. And it should have a well-labeled a detailed title of the graph. So this is position versus time of a red dune buggy. That's good. Yeah, that's what I'll be expecting. All right, there you go. Bye.